Hey, so today we're going to be doing a short bake because if you have sourdough, you always have discard. Tons of discard. And it hurts to throw all that away. I mean, it's good, it's useful, it's just that you're not using it right now. And so today, I'm going to use my discard to make crackers because everybody loves crackers, more or less. And you can stick them into a jar. They hold real good. You can take them to parties. You can take them for snacks to lunch. I mean, you can always use crackers. Crackers are great. So today, we're going to make crackers. And at this point, I thought I would say, why am I wearing a bandana? Not like a hat, hairnet. You have people making food. You want that kind of protection. I actually have an amazing hat. I love my hat. I just can't wear it anymore. I got it when I was working in a restaurant years and years ago. And rather than hairnets, we had baseball caps. And it's awesome. I love it. But I have multiple sclerosis. And one of the effects that it has had is that my balance goes wonky if I have something that sticks out too far into my line of sight. So I can do the little short, stubby ball caps. And they're okay. They're not great. But I can't do a full brim. It makes me dizzy. But I can do bandanas. Ha ha ha. So I have taken up collecting bandanas. And it's awesome because you can find all kinds of cool stuff if you actually start looking, not just the regular pattern. I forget what it's called. Everybody has it. Comes in all kinds of colors, that pattern. But you can find fun things. Like this one is pencils. Ha ha ha. I got that because I'm also a teacher. Professor. Technically at the moment. I'm adjunct. It changes. So that's why always make sure you have something to keep your hair out of your food. Because no one wants to find that in their crackers. You kind of try to break up your cracker and there's hair. Bad. Very bad. So have something on your head. But a bandana works like this. Hold your hair down. So we're going to make sourdough discard crackers. And this is a really fast, really easy recipe. I really, really like this one. Let's see. Our author is Amy Duska from littlespoonfarm.com. And I will post the link to this recipe in my comments, or yes, I'm pretty sure that's where it goes. Description. I'm still new to YouTube. Sorry, guys. But I will post the link to this recipe down there somewhere. All right, let's get started. Okay, like I said, this is a really easy recipe. You start off with butter. And here I've got 28 grams of butter that I've already melted and cooled. You don't want to be too hot. You want it to cool down but still be liquid. So to that, we're going to measure out 200 grams of sourdough discard. And this is nice and still bubbly. Actually, I just fed this morning, so this is what's left over from that feeding. So we're going to go ahead and measure out 200 grams of discard in here. And I actually have a backup jar just in case we need more. It's really easy to always have backup discard because you just keep getting it. All the discard everywhere. But that's a good thing. You can make lots of crackers. So if you're doing your own measuring and have your own sourdough discard going at home, I fed this morning and my portions are 4 ounces of discard to 100 grams each flour and water. And left over from that feeding, looks like I had 183 grams of discard. Not quite enough for this recipe. But like I said, I've got more. So we're just going to top this off to hit 200. And if you go over, that's fine. over is better than under. Under, things are going to start behaving a little funny. If you go over, you can always make the adjustments that you need to make to get it to be the consistency or texture that you want it to be. So we're at 208 grams. That's just fine. To that, just everything gets all mixed together in here. It's wonderful. I've got 2 teaspoons of dried herbs. In this case, it's just an Italian mix. You can use whatever flavors you want. Just dump that in there. And then I've got a 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt. This is fine sea salt. Dump that in. If you have a seasoning mix that you really like, that's will have the salt already in it along with a bunch of herbs and spices, that's great. Just leave out that 1/4 teaspoon of salt if it's already in your seasoning mix. The herbs that I put in don't have any salt in them, thus I still need the salt to be in there. So all you do is just mix this up. And remember, if you're using your sourdough starter, especially if it's new, it gets really goopy and doesn't actually want to mix. If your starter is older, one, it will be tartar. It'll have more of the sourdough flavor to it. But 2, it'll also mix easier because things have broken down in there. It's not quite so tacky. But there we go. We've got that mixed. That's all it takes. And you're just going to put this mix onto a sheet of parchment paper, which I already have, out onto a pan. And you can use any shape, kind of pan, whatever you want to. I've used, silicone mats before rather than parchment. That works fine. Whatever you've got and want to use. I like this pan just because it doesn't have sides, or at least not really tall sides, so that I can spread things easier. But once you've got that down, you can use your spatula if that's what you've got, or if you have one or you want to splurge and get yourself one, offset spatula. You can get them in cake decorating a lot of the time. It just gives you a wider spread bit. And you just want to spread this out so that it's thin on your paper. And shape doesn't really matter. I mean, I try to keep it square because I am going to be cutting it. But if it goes into wonky shapes, don't worry about it. That's just fine. And you want it to be thin if you want crispy crackers. If you like a thicker, kind of heartier cracker, don't spread it so thin. But that's also going to affect your bake time, is how thin you spread this. But I like a nice, thin, crisp cracker, so I'm going to take up all my space on this. And you want it, you can kind of see where it gets a little lumpy in places. And you just want to spread that out. Get it to be as even as you can. It's not going to be. This is homemade, that's the point. And then I just use my spatula and scraper to clean each other. Get those last little bits. I might be slightly obsessive. Whatever, it's endearing, right? And now you're gonna have a little bit, I use a coarse sea salt. And this is just for topping. You're just gonna sprinkle it lightly over the top. And this will depend on what you're using, for seasoning mix, how much salt is already in there. The recipe is assuming that your mix doesn't have salt. So if you've already got a ton of salt, you might not want to do this top. or you might want to do it lighter. But I think just the 1/4 teaspoon of coarse sea salt does nicely. And I like the coarse because it shows up. You can still see it on your crackers after you bake it, and it makes it nice and pretty. So now, as it is, just as it is, this is going to go in the oven for 10 minutes. It won't be done. After that 10 minutes, we're going to take it out and then score it in whatever shape you want your crackers to be. And then you're going to stab it all over with a fork, unless you have a fancy scoring gizmo, and I don't. So I just stab the heck out of it with a fork. And then you're going to put it back in the oven and bake it. And depending on how thin you've spread this, it's going to take you 20 to 50 minutes. It's 50. So 20 to 50 minutes until your crackers are done. And what you're looking for is golden brown. You don't want dark. You don't want like honey brown. You want a little lighter than that. But it should feel like a cracker. It shouldn't have any give to it when you poke it when it's done baking. It should, you can hear it when you tap it, you can feel it that it doesn't have any give. It feels like a cracker. If it still has some give to it, give it a little more time. It's not done yet. So we're going to throw these in the bake, and then I will let you see them when they're done. All right, they're out of the oven, they're cooled, they're busted up, and they're in a nice fun jar. Ha ha ha. And you can see they're irregular, fun shapes, but that's really fast and it's really easy. Crackers are a great use for your discards. And if you work in an office, I can fairly much promise you, you take these into the office, leave them in the break room, they're going to be gone. Especially if there's a little cheese in there. Crackers always go good with cheese. So this recipe, like I said, you can do anything you want with. Just, you have your measurements for the discard, and after that, and the butter. You definitely need that much butter. But as far as the seasonings go, 2 teaspoons of something. And if that something doesn't have salt in it, add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to make up for that, and just a sprinkling of salt on the top. And that's it. You can do anything you want with this recipe, which is what makes it so awesome. This is a great recipe. So, hope you guys have fun baking your own crackers with your discard, and see you next time.